So many men, when you ask them, like, what is masculinity, they say leader, provider, and a protector. Cool, nothing wrong with that. But then these same men proceed to say that they prefer to go 50-50. They want 50-50. They think 50-50 is the right way to go. Which there's nothing wrong with going 50-50, but you just said a masculine man is someone that is a provider and a protector. You can't even provide. You can't even lead. You work at Amazon. Sit down. So many men want to be leaders in the bedroom. Why can't you lead a boardroom meeting? Why can't you lead anywhere else outside of the bedroom? That's because you can't. So that's why you want to be a leader, because you can't lead in when what matters and what matters in your life. You can only lead a lady. And how are you supposed to lead me when you are broke? Where are you leading me to? Poverty? Food stamps? EBT? How are you leading me when you are broke? Like, that's what I want to know from these men. You have no money. You work at Amazon. Where are you going to lead me with no money? Where are you leading me? The food bank?
It's it's a sad day when leadership, especially let's keep with the black community. Leadership is synonymous with making money, with having an exorbitant amount of money in order to be considered a leader. But we've seen the sort of the slide where if you don't have money, then there's no incentive for me to listen to what you have to say. Even if you have more money than me, if you don't have an exorbitant amount of money, then there's no reason for me to listen whatever you have to say. And I like to use these videos to sort of highlight. Sometimes I think what is hyperbole, but I think we're seeing it more and more becoming prevalent in our younger generation, where these are the talking points, these are the beliefs. There's a thread on Twitter where men are, I think a woman said she didn't believe that women are always asking men for money, and men just show the receipts. So these things are important to highlight, to push back against, because it simply shows if you kind of are silent about it and let these things kind of roll out, then this becomes the norm, which I don't think is what's happening in regular, degular society. I think people know stuff costs, right? You want to have an extravagant lifestyle, that is an extra cost. Living just a normal life costs money. And most couples, they're splitting something somehow. It's not even if it's not 100% nothing, it's not 50-50. There's some sort of transactional split, be it labor, be it monetary, emotional. There's something that one side does better than the other, and they compensate each other for it. I think when we get back to having those real conversations, we'll be in a better place. But before we do a deeper dive into this one, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the uploads. We're still trying to go and do, two two a day. And we just, you know, some days a little harder than others, but we're getting there. So yeah, we'll run this back and then we'll do a deeper dive into what she's got to say.
So many men, when you ask them, like, what is masculinity, they say leader, provider, and a protector. Cool, nothing wrong with that. But then these same men proceed to say that they prefer to go 50-50. They
Again, right there. So if I'm a leader, protector, provider, that doesn't mean that I necessarily have to have more of money than you to be a leader, right? If I have more experience, if I've fallen on hard times, right? If I'm in the process of getting to where I'm sort of going to be, when you could look at my potential trajectory, you could see where I'm trying to go. And if you in the beginning have a more lucrative career, and there's easy opportunities for women today to have that. Say you do something like OF, you can make, an exorbitant amount of money very early, very quickly, and frankly, very easily. Now, if you're with someone that needs 10, 15 years to hit his financial stride, hit that momentum, have that momentum start working for him, does that mean he can't be a leader? He can't lead you because you make more than him? If you take, right, and we're not talking averages, right? Whenever people talk about, like the OF, they talk about the people making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. If you find someone that's that equivalent, that's what you would need to find someone that does that to be a leader. When you take that notion and you sort of extrapolate it further out, it seems kind of silly, right? It seems kind of silly, especially when, and we like numbers, we like math. When you look at what the average person on OnlyFans is making, it's less than $150. So it's not, when we speak to these things and we say these, we're talking about such a slim majority of people that are able to do some of these things. You want someone that's going to potentially, if you call yourself a leader, you suddenly have to pay all the bills. For I mean, you pay all your bills, so you're a leader, right? Are you a leader of your own life? It's a little silly thing to say that, but if I can't pay your own bills, the bills you've accumulated in your life, the debt you've accumulated, then I can't lead you out of said debt. I remember in previous relationships, I would always try to be, my mom taught me about finances and taught me how to be financially savvy. But it took me some time to sort of start adhering to those lessons. I got into credit card debt very early in early college, like most of us do. When you walk into the student union and they say, "Here, here's a credit card," right? Sign this in pencil, and here's a credit card. And I remember running that one up and then looking, saying, I'm making these payments, nothing's happening." But it took me a while, and I got better at it, and I became confident in order. And sometimes in a previous relationship, I helped her get out of that. Right? It's not leadership. Yes, I made more money than her, not enough at the time to pay all the bills. That's not a leader, right? When we put these terms together and make it seem like you have to be able to do this arbitrary thing that a small minority of people are able to do, right? You can, like, and side note, you can increase the amount of men that can pay 100% of bills if you have no debt, right? If you have no debt and you have a small quality of life where you don't spend a lot of money, you don't necessarily need a lot of money, you don't need money for maintenance, hair, all that. No, you very low key. Yes, then another man can come together and probably take on that without having to make $300,000, right? And I like to use 300,000 because when people often say they want a man that can pay all the bills, they're talking about a very luxurious lifestyle, vacations where they're home and they get to live a life of luxury rather than saying, I'm simply going to be a stay home mom. We're going to live modestly on his salary and we're still going to be able to save, invest for the future. The story is never really like that. It's one of, I want to stay home and I want a life of leisure. So I say that conversation is a $300,000 one. And if you don't make that, then this is essentially what this rhetoric says. You have to make this amount of money in order for me to consider you a leader.
Want 50-50, they think 50-50 is the right way to go, which there's nothing wrong with going 50-50, but you just said a masculine man is someone that is a provider and a protector. You can't even provide, you can't even lead, you work at Amazon, sit down. So many.
So this also harkens to something I've said on the channel several times, that when we're talking about masculinity, men have to be in the driver's seat of defining what that is. That just has to be the case. Otherwise, it's always going to have a set of extra rules or be sort of twisted to make sense from a feminine point of view. I don't think my masculinity is not defined by what I could provide to someone whom I'm simply talking to or dating. That's never been the thing for me. But it's taken time. It's taken time for me to arrive at this conclusion that no, we have to set those terms. We have to determine what that is. Otherwise, there's always going to be an easy talking point to twist and say, yeah, you talk about masculinity, but you work at Amazon. Masculinity is not a thing that's unlocked at a certain, annual salary. You know, you have to make this in order to have this conversation. No, that's never been the case. That can't be the case. But the minute we allow these conversations to go unchecked, unfettered, then yeah, the conversation starts skewing that way where very regular, degular people, and I think a lot of us are regular, degular, we became espousing these thoughts. And the worst part is, it's when men take their cues on masculinity from women and let that be the definition. I think we've had that for a generation and a half, and we are not liking the result of those type of men. If you disagree with something I'm saying right here, let me know in the comments. Love to see what you guys have to say about topics like this. Um, if you're hearing the sound of my voice and you haven't subscribed, why not? Why not? Come on. If you see videos on your screen right now, go ahead and take a look. Let me know what you think about those as well. I'll see you guys on the next one.